Josh, that was an awesome show. Thanks so much. I mean,
pleasure.
it's not the first time you set foot in front of our cameras, but the first time under your name,
Yeah.
or under Father John Misty. How'd it feel? What was the experience like for you?
Well, I mean, I'm a little under the weather. Have you ever, those like Victorian period piece movies where like the protagonist is like a pale child, and the precocious nanny comes in and like flings the curtains open and like allows the sunlight into the room, and insists that the child go outside every once in a while to combat their illness. That's basically me. That's my constitution. So I was a little nervous, but no, it was great.
Well, hopefully it was therapeutic for whatever is ailing you at the moment.
No, I'm like 100% now.
Yeah, well, like I was saying, 100% of what those is the question. But
Yeah.
All right, getting down to a little more serious business, pure comedy, which sounds like a contradiction, but I think it's fair to say that we live in an era of outrage in so many different ways, more than we would have realized a few months ago. Is it fair to say that the songs on your album are about the way we live in today's world, broadly speaking?
I don't think that my album could, I'm not sure that I could have fully anticipated. I think my Philly meltdown did a better job of capturing the appropriate response, or if there was any kind of like precognitive response to what was going on. I mean, my album is, the album is so full of kind of like these ecclesiastical subtleties and stuff, where just sort of chalking it all up to like, well, this is just human nature and whatever else. Like to be honest, like my political stance has changed, and I think when I was making this album, it was coming from a place of sort of thinking like, well, I can take pot shots at progress because we're headed somewhere, and I felt like I was afforded a certain amount of subtlety, but this whole thing's fucking. I mean, it really does feel like new territory. So I'm not sure that my album actually really, when you consider that most of our experience in this world took place during the 20th century, which had its own failures and abominations of its own, but they were of a nature that was less like farcical than what's happening. I mean, like they were cruel and strange and whatever, but this is farcical, I mean, I'm not sure that music requires so much ambiguity and abstraction of thought and whatever. Like, in order to combat what's going on now, you need just like somebody like screaming atonally. But so
it is, yeah. The
really
world has
great
changed
answer
since
to
you
that
wrote those
question.
songs.
Yeah.
The world has changed since you wrote those songs, and yet the songs themselves sort of straddle the fence between hope and scorn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's sort of the nature of writing. Like, in order to make whatever hope that you want to proffer in a song believable, you have to create like a believable foil for it, And hope is like a really potent ingredient, Like if you put a lot of it in a song, it becomes sentimental or something, or just kind of gregarious. And yeah, I don't know. It's funny trying to like parse what the songs are about intellectually right after playing them, because they make so much sense. To me, the songs make so much sense, like, in the moment. And I think that they really do for the audience, too. Like, trying to defend them intellectually is really tough because I'm not singing. Like, when there's something extraordinary that happens when you're singing and when there's music. When you're just, like, trying to talk, things kind of get messy or tough to. I'm not like a talking head. I really do a great job of parsing what's going on in the culture unless I am, singing. We think about what's happening in the culture, like in pop culture, for example, as being, like, reactionary, but it's actually preemptive. And that's what scares me, is that there is a crisis, an imminent crisis, whether it's ecological or whatever else. Or, like, if you look at like what happened in Charlottesville, and et cetera, there are these crises that are happening in the culture. And when those crises happen, a vacuum opens up, and it gives an opportunity for ideologies that have been building in the collective imagination to fill that vacuum. And that's what disturbs me about pop culture as it exists today, is that what's happening in the collective imagination, once these crises happen, if you were to fill that vacuum with what's happening now, that it's, like, incredibly nihilistic, incredibly self-centered, incredibly just sort of banal, And I think that we do need to take seriously the fact that there is, like, peril in our culture, and that when it occurs, like, we need a culture of substance to be there to inspire people and whatever else. It can't just be entertainment, I'm not saying that my music is, like, particularly, like, revolutionary or whatever at all. I aspire to that. I would like to create something that when these moments of crisis happen, maybe I've made something that reminds people of the fact that they're alive and what they want to live for, and that there is, like, an undercurrent of hope and substance and whatever. Like, do you know what I mean by that?
I do.
Yeah.
And of course, it can also remind people of stuff that they don't want to be reminded of or be made to think about.
But it's easy to, when things are good, it's easy to think, like, well, this is just how it is now, and we can waste, we can waste this bandwidth that's happening in the culture on confections, when on the left, we need to invent a future. There needs to be some kind of girding for what the future is going to look like. And a lot of that happens in the culture. And that's certainly happened with neoliberalism, where, like, this was, like, a decades-long process of, like, getting people on board for what the future was going to look like. And in the 70s, when you had unemployment and inflation at the same time and a huge crisis, and needed a new worldview, like, neoliberalism filled that void. And I think that we really are in our lifetimes coming up on some new catastrophe where we're going to need a new worldview. And that's why I believe in, like, a certain kind of, like, or like a socialist or like progressive values, and I think that those should be reflected in the culture, because we're not going to get over that next hump unless we do.
Why do you think your music, your songs are resonating so well with so many people right now? I mean, maybe there's no way to know why.
Well, I mean, I think there's a few different. I think if you suspend the content of the songs themselves, I think that there are people who are inspired by watching somebody just take a big swing you know, like whether or not they believe with my whether they believe with my like worldview or whatever, there is something inspiring about watching someone just like batter up, you know, and just go like, I am I am categorically unqualified to answer these questions, but I'm going to try, you know, like I'm going to try to take this head on. That's one category. There's another category of people who actually identify, I think, with there's a lot of ambiguity in my music, you know, like a song like When the God of Love Returns, which is sort of on the surface is some kind of like atheist screed or something. But once you get to the end of the song, you realize that the song is really about having empathy with the concept of God so that you don't have to like be a fanatic anymore, either on the religious side or the atheist side. Some kind of like empathy for man's creativity. There's that category. And then there's the third, which is just sort of, which I don't think is invalid. I mean, there's stuff about what I do that is not for everybody, and I do think that there's sort of a reckoning happening in the culture where it's like, well, I don't really want to listen to like another like white middle class dude like sing about his feelings, and I think he's just like bad at music and annoying, and that's another and that's fine, you know what I mean? Like that's fine. I can't really speak to why I'm not on any kind of campaign to like get those people on board. Like it's okay. Like there are a lot of people who make music, and there's a lot that I have still to learn. I'm a terrible famous person. I think that has a lot to do with it. So there's that. Like I'm terrible at being famous. Like I don't do it very well.
Why was it important to have such a large ensemble on stage with the horns and the strings to really add a different dimension to your music, to your songs?
Well, strings and horns like they're presented tonight are kind of surrogates for. If I had my way, I would just fill. I would just fill my records with like the human voice, but there's something about strings and horns that emulate that kind of human singing tone, and this record is so much about the human thing that it was important to me that it not be like cluttered. So the strings and horn parts really became like fundamental to the composition of the songs. So it's sort of like when you present them without those parts, it's like missing, in another genres, it's like missing like the drum beat or missing the guitar part or something in my mind. If those parts are not represented, then you're not really hearing the song.
Do you have a history with Austin, a personal connection at all?
I mean, the fact that I think so. I mean, I have been I've been here like in so many different circumstances. Like I've been here as like the drummer in a really unsuccesswansuccessful band. I've been here as the drummer in a successful band. I've been here as a wannabe solo artist. I've been here as like a successful solo artist, and all of those shows have had, and this is unique, is it's like all those shows and all those different kind of contexts have had dignity because there are people here who really love music, and that while that sounds sort of like banal, like it's true, you know, like you can feel that when you're doing something that's kind of doing well, you can still feel it when people really love music, you know, or when they're responding to things that you put a lot of thought and energy into, you know, like specificities of an arrangement or whatever it is. Like you can tell that like that's what people are. I don't know. I don't like to try to talk about music, but in all those different contexts, shows here have always been great. You know, even if there were like 10 people and a bartender watching a show, it still had dignity. It felt great. Yeah, and so yeah, for that reason, I do love this city.
And you're here tonight to add your notch in the Austin City Limits legacy.
It's incredible.
So,
yeah, thanks, man.
that's a great note to end on.